Hello and welcome to Monday Marks. My name is Sharon Ciccone and today I'm going to be exploring new territory. So I'm going out on a limb and I'm going to start playing with some materials that I already own and love and some new materials that I've just been curious about, and I wanted to see how the two interact. So today I'm going to be playing with some cold wax, pen pastel, a little bit of tar gel, some of my favorite paper, which is a water strength tissue paper that has some drawing on it that I will apply to a cradled board covered in a metallic paint. So I'm curious to see how all of these are going to work together layer by layer. And I'm of course going to also use some pigment sticks. I'm very lucky to live here in the Hudson Valley, not too far from RNF, which makes the most beautiful, luxurious pigment sticks. And I have a few that I have owned for a while from some of my encaustic work, but today I'm going to combine them with some cold wax, which I've never really tried or explored, and I'm interested to see what I can do with it. So come along on my journey and we'll see how it all works. For this experiment, I started with a cradled board that is about 3/4 of an inch and 10 by 10. So for the board, I've already prepped it, and what I usually do to prep is I sand the board down, and then I create a barrier layer with gloss medium over the whole thing, let that dry, and then I come in with an acrylic gesso. So I've gessoed over the entire board, let that dry, gave it a light sand in between, another layer of the gesso, and another light sanding. I don't know how this is going to work out, which is the whole point of an experiment, but I decided I wanted to work with some metallics in this piece, as well as exploring this cold wax medium. So I'm using a liquid metals. This is by Sargent Arts, and this is just silver. And it really creates a beautiful sheen on the board, which I think is going to probably end up disappearing in the long run because I'm going to be using quite a few layers of things that are kind of matte. So we'll see how that goes. But what I did next is I did some drawings on wet strength tissue paper, and I love this material. You can see what I've cut it out of because it is really sturdy. It's not regular tissue paper, and when you use it in this way with lots of wet medium, it's not going to rip on you. So I just started with a basic general layout of what I think I'm going to do. I'm going to add some more embellishments, I think, with this is acrylic pens that I've been using in both white and black. And I will probably end up having to add some more pen work on top of it, but we'll let it dry first. So I'm just going to move these out of the way, and I'm going to use my gloss medium as my glue. And I love the gloss medium because it really makes all of this tissue paper disappear, which is pretty cool. Matte medium will also work. I just like the gloss medium, and look at that. It completely just disappeared into the board as if there's no paper there. And by the time I add all of my layers, you're not going to see any tissue paper line at all. So it lays down beautifully. This is a great way if you're afraid to draw directly on your board. This is a great way to take away that fear and worry about your placement. And again, what I love about collage is that you can audition everything before you lay it down. Now I'm noticing that this had some white drawing on it, and I'm noticing that the white drawing is not showing up as well. So I'm wondering if these other pieces are going to show up very well. Well, we'll find out, and if not, I'll just draw directly on the board. It's not a problem for me. But this is just a great way to transfer your idea without worrying about it not working for you. And again, like I said, I can audition where I want my pieces to go. I feel like there's a slight dirtiness maybe to my brush here, but so we'll see if this shows or not with the white. If it doesn't show a lot, a little bit, I can certainly go back in, yeah, and draw right on top of it. And I know exactly where it's going, so it's going to be fine. I'm going to go ahead and put this gloss medium everywhere. I'm going to have that go off the edge. I love when things go off the edge, and I can just trim that off later once it's dry. I thought maybe I was going to overlap them, but I think I changed my mind about that. So once this is dry, I think what I'm going to do is go in with my white drawing pens and just do a little bit more to just define it a little bit, so that it really stands out as white on the board, because you can see that black is really bold, no problems at all there. So I need to completely let this dry and make sure that if I have any bubbles that I push them down, although I'm going to have so many layers on this, any little bubbles are really not going to show. I just don't want to disturb my drawing too much. Okay, so let's let that dry. So now that this is dry, I did go back in and I added some more details, just some little drawings to kind of balance out the composition and, you know, bring some interest into some of the in-between areas. So this is all, like I said, completely dry, and I thought I would experiment with a little bit of clear tar gel. I thought this would be interesting because anything I add on top of the tar gel will rub off of it. So I'm thinking I might be able to get some of this silver metallic showing through a little bit. I don't know. I'm just going to see. The cool thing about tar gel is it's really, really stringy, and it creates some incredibly thin lines that I couldn't really get with anything else. And it will be a raised line and completely clear. So this is 100% transparent. So I'm just kind of stirring it up with a stick, trying to get some strings out of it. I don't know how much I'm going to be able to control this, so it may end up on top of everything. I might be able to get some small areas in between. I'm just going to have to kind of play and see what I can get to happen, and just allow it to kind of do its own thing. So I'm using the cap because it doesn't stop dripping, so I'm dripping into the cap just to try to keep it from going everywhere. And this is a skewer, so I'm thinking I might also be able to pull some like stringy little lines out of this, which might make it feel a little bit more organic than just plopped on there. So I'm going to give that a little bit of a try. See if I can get some thick and some thin. So I'm just playing, just like I said I was going to, just to see what can I pull out of this? What can I get to happen? And I am going to be, after this medium is dry, it will hold its shape. And after it's dry, I'm going to use another medium over top of this, which is a pastel ground, and that's because I want to try the cold wax. The cold wax on top of acrylic needs something to hold on to. So if I were going to just, I'm actually going to use some pastel. That's why I'm using a pastel ground. But the pastel ground also creates a grit. So that grit should really help everything that I want to adhere with the cold wax to adhere. So we'll see. This is my experiment. I know some people have used, see, that is way too thick, but I also have a knife here. I'm going to pull that off, and then I'm going to give it a wipe. It may show up in the end, we'll see. And that's why it's good to just let it drip until it gets thinner, and then see what happens here. I'm kind of doing this in between in some of the silvery areas. We'll see what happens. I'm excited. I love a good experiment. I love to see what I can get my materials to do. And in this case, some different mediums, and which I have used before. I've used all of these mediums so far, but I have not used the cold wax, except for I've used cold wax on one piece of artwork, and that was to, actually little dots might be kind of cool. I don't know. Sorry, having a squirrel moment here as I'm working and talking at the same time. But I've used cold wax, a Dorland's wax, to seal in an artwork that I really wanted to be satin. I had used a pouring medium, which was a high gloss over top of a very thick painting collage. And I had used molding paste and all sorts of materials. So I used the pouring medium to create some leveling of my collage so that it wouldn't be so uneven. And that worked pretty well. And then I used a super matte medium over top of that. And then I used the Dorland's wax so that it would stay matte. And so instead of a varnish, although there's lots of different varnishes you could use, but the wax really gave it just a matte look. So it really had a little bit of a sheen like it would if it was encaustic. So I'm anxious to see how this cold wax works as well, because I'm guessing it's going to give me a nice encaustic look too. All right, I think I'm going to stop there. I've got some textures down. So I'm going to leave those and let this dry. And then when I come back, I'm going to go over the whole thing with the pastel ground and let that dry as well. So quite a few layers going on here, and we're just going to see what happens. All right. Now that the tar gel is dry, what I can do next is I'm going to go over the entire artwork with a pastel ground. And this is going to allow me to have a really rough surface for two materials. The first one, I am going to be using some pan pastels. I know this is a little shiny to see, but they're a very, very soft pastel. They come in these little cups, and they're really beautiful to layer and to apply, and it's almost like painting. So it's going to grab a hold of that pastel. In addition, I'm going to go over that with a cold wax, and I am going to be using some Dorland's wax along with some R&F paint sticks. So at this point, acrylic after this can't happen. This is the last time I can use any kind of acrylic medium because the Dorland's wax is not compatible. It can go on top of acrylic, but you can't put acrylic on top of wax. So it's just a different, you have to think about your layers, what goes first, and then what can happen after that. So this is a really nice medium. It has a grit to it, so it's going to grab a hold of absolutely everything that I attach. I'm not sure how this is going to work with the tar gel I used. It did create a nice texture on top of this. It is going to be a matte because it has a grit to it. So it is going to take down some of the sheen that I have on here. So the background is probably going to end up looking more gray than it is going to look silver. And I'm just putting it on just delicately, not to disturb anything underneath too much. I can already see some of the texture of the tar gel showing through. So I'm just kind of dragging it across the top very, very lightly. Again, I don't want to disturb any of my drawing that I have on here. I also don't want to cover it up entirely because I want to be able to see that. So I'm just doing a very light coat. Now, when this dries, it is going to dry matte. It's a semi-transparent. So it's not going to have the same sheen that my artwork had on it before. It's going to take down, it's okay. It's going to take down some of the sheen of the, not only the silver that I started with, but it's also going to take down the sheen of that tar gel. Now, what I'm noticing is some of my marker that I used is smearing a little bit, but in the end, I don't know if that's going to bother me. So for some reason, it's picking up. Now I can wipe it, and I could even use a Q-tip to wipe it, but honestly, it's kind of not bothering me. I just don't want it to go over the white areas that I have here. So I'm going to be careful of those. It just may not be sticking as well to that metallic paint. That's my guess. So all of this is an experiment. So you find out pretty quickly, like what's going to work and what is not going to work. And I love that. This is kind of my experimental piece. It's not that I don't want it to be, you know, something that I would want to keep, but I'm just not going to worry about the fact that if things change a little bit, it's fine because I'm learning as I go. So I might have needed to let that cure a little bit longer. That's the possibility. I would rather have you see me, let's get that straight, make mistakes and learn from them than to do everything perfectly, because we all know that is just not the way things go. Things do not go perfectly. So we're always learning, experimenting, trying things, and then seeing what happens. And that's how we do our best work, because we figure it out. And I'll remember that maybe I need to give that a little bit of a longer time to cure, but at the same time, and that was actually Posca pen, it was acrylic. At the same time, you know, just allowing things to happen can lead to some happy accidents too. So it's all good. That's my feeling about it. So when this dries, it's going to have a real grit to it. And that's going to be great for everything that I want to add next, because it's going to hold it. If I didn't use this pastel ground that I'm using right now, the cold wax wouldn't have anything to grab hold of. So what you would have to do is actually do a light sanding, just to add some rough area for it to stick to. Now I have tape on the side of my board, but I'm just cleaning it up a little bit because it is coming off the edge, and it'll just save me some work later. Okay, so the next step is to let that dry, and then we'll see where we go from there. Okay, so this is dried with a touch overall, and you can even hear the scratchiness of the surface. So that's really good because I have something that is going to grab a hold. And you can see a little bit where I had some smearing, but overall that's not going to bother me. I think that it's going to have a little bit more of a painterly effect by the time I'm done anyway, and less of a illustrative kind of effect. Now, what I'm going to do next is I'm going to use some pan pastel, which is a really, really soft pastel. It's for pastel painting, and it works great on a surface like this because it will grab a hold of the soft pastel. Now, these come with sponges that you can use, but honestly, I love using cosmetic foam wedges, and I got these at Amazon and they work great. And I can't even tell you how many of these I got at one time. So it's very economical, and I can wash out the sponges, reuse them. I use them with stenciling, with acrylic paint. And of course I can use them with some pan pastel. Now it's called pan pastel because it comes in these pans, and these come individually. You can just buy them individually. You can buy them as a set, and they have little caps that you can screw on. But I like to keep them like this and then put the top over it and put them in a plastic bag just to contain any kind of dust that I might have. So I'm going to go into this with some really beautiful, cool colors. And I'm going to put them right over top, and I can get right in, and you can start to see some of the texture of the tar gel will start to come through. Because this has a really nice sharp edge, I can also get right around things that I want to get around. And I might go in, I don't know, we'll see. But I'm just going to start building up some layers. And here comes some of that texture from the tar gel. And I'm just going to start painterly working some color in here. And what's so nice is where I have some light areas, the light areas are going to show through. So I had some kind of like white circles in here, and they're still showing. I'm going to work around a few things, and let's see how it works over some of those black smudges, and just start painting it in. It's going to give me such a soft, ethereal effect, which is exactly what I want. I don't want this to be really, really dark or really, really light. I want to see some really nice painterly effects happening here. And I am working around things, which I can do with this sponge. You can easily change colors and blend those together, and it's grabbing hold because of that pastel ground that I added. And I can blend them together. And I think I might try to clean off a little bit of where it's over the tar gel. We'll see. I'm not sure if that's going to work or not. So I went from a really nice like aqua soft green to a nice soft blue, and I'm going to go in a little bit darker over here. And I'm thinking about what are the colors that I'm going to be using with my paint sticks. so that it's all harmonious and really goes together. This is one of my favorite colors. I don't even know the names of all these colors. I probably need to go back and look at like the sets that I ordered to figure that out. So right now I'm just working around some of the details, pushing a few things back. But I want to keep this very water-like. So that's why I'm using some of the colors that I'm using. And you can build up your layers. So going back in over top, just to darken some things, but I could also come in, like I have some whites, if I want to lighten something a little bit. I can go in and lighten them. I just love these pan pastels, and I'm always looking for ways that I can use them, because I don't always have a plan. So, you know, figuring out like, how can I make these work for me? It's fun to experiment and figure out how. So I'm kind of bringing some of that black is now pushing back so it's not so black. I just love, 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 love the softness of it. It's really lovely. I'm going to switch over to here. I almost feel like these are emeralds. Not that I'm using an emerald color. I'm keeping things kind of earthy, but I really love it. And I am getting a little sheen, very gently. Like, I don't know exactly how this is all going to work with that metallic underpainting, but until you try it, you'll never know. So that's what I'm doing. I'm just trying things to see what will happen and figure things out as I go. So it's just experimentation. It's a learning. Oh, that's not what I want. It's just a learning example. That's a beautiful, brilliant blue. And I'm thinking once I get to the R&F paint sticks, I'll be able to do some other things with this as well. I think I'm going to go with this green. There was a really rough area here, so it's really grabbing hold. I'm not sure why that area was rough, but it's fine. I kind of like the whites white, but maybe I will do a little, where do I want to go here? I'm going to use some of this really bright yellow green in here. What a fun experiment, right? You never know until you try. So this is a really fun thing for me to do. I'm wondering if I used a little alcohol on some of the tar gel, which has created, like, it will grab a hold of certain things, which is nice. I definitely feel like it has an underwater feel, and I'm enjoying that. And this is just such a soft way to work. I'm gonna go back in with a little of this. And especially if you go in one direction with this, it'll pick up on the edges of that tar gel. But I am wondering, what would it look like if I did, I don't know, like, can I take some of the medium off? I don't think so. I bet you if I took some sandpaper over the top, it would. So I think that's gonna have to be the next thing I try. It's just a little bit of sandpaper and just go straight over the top, like with a block, and see if I can pull some of this pastel medium off. Ooh, I'm excited about that now. So that's why I say you just gotta experiment. Just see, like, what's gonna happen. Such a beautiful thing. What if I did this? What if I did that? And just allow it to be and to transform. Going in with a little bit of a lighter blue. A little bit of that in the background. And if you want to get more detail, you can use Q-tips, you can use really soft foam, anything. I'm just using this wedge and I like how it's working for me. All right, let's see what happens if I were to sand a little bit. I said if I did this over a block. I don't have a block, but I'm just gonna hold it really as flat as I can. Just see if I can get some of that metallic to come through. A little bit right here, I'm seeing just a little bit more gray. Oh, that's interesting. I don't want to sand too much because I don't want to sand away my art. But it is taking off some of that pastel medium, and now you're starting to see a little bit more of the texture. Very cool. And I'm not sanding all the way through. I'm just standing on top. So it's just taking some of the hide areas and bringing those out a little bit. So that's kind of neat. Very cool. I like that. That was a good choice. All right, I'm gonna let this sit for a second and decide what I'm gonna do next. I probably have more of the oil sticks than I really need, but something that's really important to know is that the oil sticks get this really hard crust on them, and you have to peel that off, and then what you will have underneath is a beautiful, beautiful, very soft, luscious oil. So this particular stick, I don't know the name of, and I apologize for that, but I have a beautiful yellow gold, I have a really nice turquoise, and a very soft white. It's not a true white, it's a soft white. And all you need to clean these up, oh, I need to have some gloves on. Hold on a second while I go get some gloves, because this is oils and I don't want to get that on my. I have to admit, I am so used to acrylics, and not that you want to have all of these mediums and things on your hands or working like finger paint, but once you start working with oils and all of the different ingredients that are in it, it's much better to have some gloves on. And what that allows you to do is actually do some finger painting. So there's a lot of really good reasons to have that. So I've already got my my chalk pastel on here, the pan pastels, which are really, really soft. And now I've got some of my R&F pigment sticks that are over here on a glass surface. And this is Dorland's wax. And you want to have about half and half for the most part. You can kind of play with that and see what works for you. So I'm just going to take some of that wax and put it out on the glass. And then I'm going to go ahead and mix the pigment stick in. And you'll see that it is so luscious, and it doesn't take much to have a really beautiful, beautiful material to work with. This is my first time really experimenting with it. So I can't say I'm an expert, but from what I have done so far with Dorland's wax and what I've seen online, just watching some videos as you are now, it's so creamy. And R&F, you can't get better than that. I live right here in the Hudson Valley, and R&F is probably about 20 miles from here, maybe not even. And I cannot say enough about the quality. When R&F actually had open studio time, where you can go and book studio time in their facility and use all of their materials, I've even been able to take my students there. Oh, what a treat, because you get to try everything without buying. You just pay for your studio time. You used to, you can't anymore. You used to be able to just, take a workshop with them, and then you could book time anytime you wanted after that. So it's just such beautiful, beautiful pigments. It is so saturated and beautiful. Can I say beautiful enough? I don't know if I can. So, and this is so easy to clean up because all you need to do is just wipe it off and toss it away. We don't have any kind of things that are going to go down the sink, which is lovely. And so you can really play with that. Now, I'm not sure 100% what I'm going to do with this. I might even use some wax just by itself, but I'm going to go in and kind of scrape it into the image where I want to have just a little texture show. And anything you don't like, you can kind of, oh, look at that. Oh, how gorgeous. It's mixing with some of those pan pastel that's underneath, which I'm loving. I can take some of this and, of course, mix it together to make a different kind of green, which I'm going to do with this as well. I definitely had too much pigment. You need so little to make this work. And that's because it's so highly pigmented. There's a little bit of smell, which I'm not in love with. I have to admit, this is why I don't do oil painting very much, because I'm not in love with the smell of it. But it is a beautiful material. The last time I have used this kind of, these pigment sticks was actually on a gel plate, and I used it to print. Now, these are not translucent, translucent or even transparent, these are very much opaque. So that is something to keep in mind. Some of these, the more wax I add, I think the more translucent they'll become. So I'm going to try that. I'm going to put a little bit of this here with just a tiny bit of pigment. And these are not added with a brush. So you can use catalyst wedges, you can use, oh, that's lovely. You can use your palette knife. And when this dries, it is going to have, it, you know, in certain areas, it's going to have texture to it. I have a very limited amount of this, so of the RNF, so I don't have a huge wide range of color, but I don't feel like I need to. I like working with a limited palette. A limited palette actually gives you a little bit of a challenge, more to work with, which I love. I'm kind of thinking this might be interesting on some of these textured areas and let it grab on some of that texture. So this is kind of a cool color. Just so much fun to try something different, you know, something that I've never tried before, just to see what it will do. And I know I can also use this with my finger. So if you're getting some texture that you don't want, or you want to blend this in, and this is the beauty of gloves, is that I can go in and use it like, you know, just a really soft paint. And it's bringing out some of the texture that's in the background too, which is nice. I'm going to use a little of this up here, I think. So you can have thick areas, you can have soft areas. You can rub away things as well on some of the high parts. And if there's something you don't like, just wipe it away. And I'm working on a cradle board for a reason, because I can be so rough with that. I can do anything I want with this cradle board, and you know, it's never going to go through the surface. I might need a little contrast. I do have, let's see, this is an ultramarine blue. So I'm just kind of softening it up a little so I can pull it out. There we go. And then just get that skin off the top. I've got a whole bunch of skins over there. I'm going to keep my wax nice. It's just so much fun to use a different medium, you know, something I haven't used before. I feel like I'm using this though more like pastels than I really am using it like cold wax. So that's something to consider. Like, is this really the best use of the cold wax? Or would it be better off if I had been using, you know, the pan pastel all along? So that's something to consider. You know, is this really the best use of the medium, which is what I'm experimenting with, because I don't know 100% what I'm going to be able to do with this. But I'll just keep going until I get something that I like. And that's the fun of mixed media. Just keep going. Just keep going. You can scrape things away. You can work into them. You can remove them. There's just so many things that you can do. And just enjoy the process of making. I actually liked this better as a white. But I know I needed some contrast here, so I'm adding some of this soft color in. And it probably would be better to let this dry. Yeah. Oh, now that's interesting. Letting that drawing come through just by rubbing it away. Oh, that's kind of beautiful. Again, it's very ethereal, has a very soft kind of look. I think I would rather have something different within the background. So, you know, maybe I'll go back in more of a watery color. So the reason that I really don't like working with oils is the smell. And this does have a definite smell to it, which I don't enjoy, which is why I switched to acrylics. When I was in college, we all, you know, kind of learned on oils, not oil pastel, but we learned on oils. But the smell is something I really, really do not enjoy. It's just too much for me. So this has to be something that, you know, what effects can I get with this that I cannot get with acrylic? That's something that I would constantly consider. What does this have to offer? And I think that's important to always think about, like, when you're using a medium, why are you using it? What does it have to offer that other things don't? And certainly the texture, like scraping across texture, is something that is really nice. But at the same time, I kind of like the resist I get with some of the acrylic layers underneath. So that's interesting too. I'm finding I'm enjoying finger painting more than I am actually painting. So that's interesting, right? I'm gonna add a little color in here. But if I wanted to build up some really beautiful thick layers of luscious paint, this would definitely be the medium. I might go back into this now that I'm kind of thinking about it. I might go back into this with some collage over top. I'm not very good with a palette knife, again, because I'm not an oil painter. So working with a palette knife has not been something that I've done for really a long time. There's a lot of texture here, and it's actually disrupting what I think I would like to do with it. But I do like the softness I'm getting in color, and it, you know, again, it feels kind of ethereal in some ways, watery. Okay, so that was cool. I think maybe the key is a little bit more paint than I'm using. But you have to be careful because the thicker the paint, the more it's going to come forward in your artwork. But that's beautiful. I think I'm going to go in with some more of this. Bring that in. The other thing about cold wax is the scratching that you can get. This needs to come forward because it is in the foreground of this artwork. Okay, more cold wax. Let's see. It's very interesting. I'm actually glad that this is not a pure white. I have seen artists using this on paper, which is typically what I work with. I like to work on paper because I live very small. And when you live small, you don't have a lot of storage space. I feel like I am losing some of my drawing underneath, but it was there to guide me anyway. I think I would say overall, I like my first iteration the best. I loved the metallic and the white and the black, but that's not what this experiment was about. But my experiment is always about learning and learning what I do like and what I would do differently, what I would enjoy more. Now this is all wet, so right now I am working wet on wet. And when you work wet on wet, things are going to blend. But I'm working with a very, very simple color palette. So that helps a lot. not making mud. Not that mud is a bad thing, by the way. If you're trying to make beautiful neutrals, that's a great experiment, right? So the wax will make the drying time speed up. Oh my gosh, how did I get that blue in there? Definitely don't want that blue in there. So far my favorite parts about this piece are honestly I do like how the pan pastel worked over the drawing. Use some of this turquoise and white. It'll be interesting to see when this dries, which will take a few days to see where it ends up. And if I hated it, well, maybe I sand it all back. You know, there's so many layers underneath there that's fine. And the nice thing about this is you can scratch through layers. And I'm kind of wondering if I can scratch down to the silver that's underneath and what that will be like. This is definitely going to take a few days to dry. I'm starting to feel like I'm frosting a cake. And I'm not enjoying that. I don't want to frost a cake, I want to paint a painting. think some of this learning curve is just remembering how to use some of the tools that I haven't used in a really long time. So here's where I am definitely seeing the benefits of the tar gel, because I can scrape right off the top of it. Just want to soften that a little, it's too much. With my tool. And it's allowing those underlayers to show through. So that I'm finding is really awesome. And you can see how much I'm getting off just by scraping. So that's pretty cool. And maybe I should have done a little more scraping before I started some of the detail. All right, I'm going to stop there for today. And we'll see how it looks tomorrow. Now that I've gotten this to a point where I want to add in some contrast and a little bit of detail, I've used the cold wax with the RNF pigment sticks, and I've got some really nice textures going on here, which I know I could build up even further, but I kind of like the softness that is going on here at the moment. So what I've decided to do is go in with a little bit of an adjustment of color in some areas and also bring in a little bit of detail. So I'm going to use a China marker. It's black, and I'm also going to use a charcoal pencil in white. And then I'm also going to add just a little bit more of the pan pastel and work that into a few areas. And after that, I think I'm going to leave it to dry for a few days, and then I'll give it an overall buffing using just the Dorland's wax. So this is a really great medium for adding your final seal coat. And if you buff it up a little bit, I know when I work with encaustic, I typically buff with a nylon stocking. That works really great. And I'm anxious to see if the same thing happens here, but that won't happen for a few days. So I'm just going to go in now and do a little bit of adjustment, adding in some maybe more of this brighter blue in a few areas, just to kind of bring from this area of the artwork out so that I have a little bit more of a balance of color. I feel like there's a lot of that going on right here in the middle. So I'm going to bring that in slightly, just in a few areas. And some of this I did, of course, with the pigment stick, which is going to give it a much more intense color. And then I'm also going to bring in some of this really beautiful kind of lemony green into some of the middle parts here as well, just to make it all feel cohesive, and so it doesn't look like just one area is getting some of that attention. So just a little bit of here and there. I want to keep this feeling very watery, as if we are swimming underwater. I feel like I don't even think I used any pigment stick down here now that I'm going back into this. And that's just fine. I'm getting, you know, a few different kinds of techniques and things going on. One thing I did like was the white that I had going in some of these areas. So I'm going to go back and bring some of that in. And it's just a little bit easier with the charcoal pencil than it might be if I were using the pigment stick. And some of the really hard areas, I'm able to get a little bit whiter. This is why I love mixed media so much, because you really can control what you want to happen. I keep moving my pencil over as if I'm picking up paint. But I just feel like I can control my final outcome more to my satisfaction. I can get the little nuances that maybe I can't get with just one medium. And part of that is because I am not an expert in this medium. I'm honestly just practicing and playing with this for the first time. I'm sure many artists who use this medium all the time can get the nuances, but I'm a novice at this. I am being 100% honest and true. I am a novice, but I just so enjoy playing and trying new things that this has been just a lot of fun for me to work on and kind of figure out little by little what it's going to become and what I'm able to do. So I'm really, I enjoyed the medium. I enjoyed the play with it. I could also use some graphite. Graphite works really well into this, apparently, at least just from my studies, you know, things that I've been looking at and exploring and learning. So that's pretty cool. I like graphite a lot. I use a lot of water-soluble graphite, which wouldn't work here, at least not in its water-soluble form, I don't believe. If somebody knows different, I would love for you to tell me, because it is one of my favorite. I love using water-soluble graphite. But this is just a little bit more oil-like using this China marker. It works great on so many surfaces. I can get a really nice black line in the work, so I like that a lot. So I'm just doing a little drawing, little bits of details. I'm not sure how much I want to do here. I might keep it very light. I don't want it to look like an illustration. Once you start bringing in too much black line, it starts to look more like an illustration rather than a painting. So I just want to be a little careful with that. But just a tiny bit, just to bring in maybe some of the detail that I lost. Where the graphite is just a tiny bit still wet. I'm sorry, the graphite. The oil is just a little wet. Oh my, look what I did. All down here. Well, let's hope I can get that off. So that was from my hand. I think it was over here touching in the, possibly the black pastel. I'm actually going to try to see if I can sand it a little and see what that does. I definitely did not want that to happen. That's what my guess is going to be happened, which I'm very disappointed by, actually. It could have been the black pastel, or it could have been even some of the pencil. So I'm a little disappointed in that. That was not a good mistake. But again, you know, when you're working with these materials, most of the time you can fix things. You can just go over it. So I'm not at all upset that, okay, I had a little mistake. Something happened I didn't really want to happen. No worries. Just gonna go in and rework this area a little bit. I'm gonna try to bring in some of that deeper blue color in here. I'm gonna bring in some white over top of that. Oh, what a mess. What a mess I made in there. So I'm just gonna soften that up a bit. So that was definitely not something I wanted to happen. I'm gonna bring in a little bit of that lime green. So I'm starting to brighten that up a little more. I'm gonna bring in some of this blue. Much better. Okay. So, word to the wise. Just be careful with that. I think I've got This might even be a place where I could scrape through. But I think I'm okay. I think it's gonna be fine. I don't think it's gonna be something that is that noticeable that it's gonna bother me forever. Okay, so I think I'm gonna leave it there and just live with it for the next few days. And then if I decide to leave it as is, then what I can do is go ahead and I will coat it with just some of the clear color of the Dorland's wax. And I think that'll work out very nicely. Okay, thank you so much for watching. I hope this gives you a little inspiration of something that maybe you can go out on a limb and just give a try and put aside that fear. You've seen me, you know, do a couple mistakes and you just move on from it. It's all good. It's fine. All right, enjoy.